On the coldest nights of the Middle Ages, the most dangerous enemy inside a castle wasn't an invading army or a poisoned goblet. It was the silence just before dawn, when the fires died low, the stone walls breathed out the day's warmth, and the cold crept in like something alive, something patient, something that knew exactly where to settle in your bones. Here's the paradox that almost nobody tells you. Medieval castles, those icons of power and protection, were often colder inside than the winter air outside. Imagine stepping into a fortress built to last 1,000 years, only to realize that surviving the night wasn't guaranteed. No central heating, no insulation in the modern sense, just towering stone, endless corridors, and the sound of wind clawing at arrow slits. Could you, right now, survive a single night in one of these castles at the height of winter? Not visit it, not tour it, but sleep, wake and function as people once did. Because for medieval nobles, soldiers, servants and prisoners alike, cold wasn't a discomfort, it was a constant test, and those who failed didn't always get a second chance. To understand why medieval castles were so brutally cold, you have to forget everything modern buildings do for us automatically. Castles weren't homes first, they were weapons. Built from thick stone to resist fire, siege engines and arrows, they prioritized defense over comfort, and stone, as it turns out, is an excellent conductor of cold. Once winter set in, those walls acted like massive ice blocks, pulling heat away from the air and the human body alike. Medieval winters were also colder than many we experience today, especially during periods like the Little Ice Age, when rivers froze, crops failed, and survival became a seasonal gamble. People didn't have thermostats or weather forecasts. They learned by memory and suffering. Chronicles describe nobles sleeping fully clothed, servants huddled together for warmth, and entire households migrating to the smallest, most interior rooms during winter months. Even kings abandoned grand halls in favour of cramped chambers because heat, not space, was the real luxury. And yet, despite all this, people lived, ruled, plotted and even thrived within these frozen walls, which raises the question, how? Survival came down to a layered system of ingenuity that feels almost invisible today. First, location mattered more than size. People moved inward, away from exterior walls, choosing rooms stacked above kitchens or near chimneys where rising heat could be stolen from below. Fireplaces weren't decorative, they were carefully engineered, with angled backs and narrow flues designed to reflect heat into the room while pulling smoke upward, though they still lost most of their warmth straight into the sky. Then came textiles, and this is where medieval life surprises you. Tapestries weren't art first, they were insulation, thick woven barriers hung floor to ceiling to trap air against stone. Beds were enclosed with heavy curtains, creating microclimates around sleeping bodies, and straw mattresses, while crude trapped warmth far better than bare wood. Clothing functioned the same way. Layers of wool, fur-lined cloaks, linen undergarments that wickered moisture away so sweat didn't freeze. Even daily routines adapted. Movement was warmth, so people worked, paced, cooked and clustered together. Stillness was dangerous. The secret wasn't defeating the cold, it was managing it, inch by inch, room by room, hour by hour, in a constant negotiation between fire, fabric and flesh. What's fascinating is how many of these medieval strategies are quietly returning today, especially as energy costs rise and sustainability becomes unavoidable. Modern passive heating borrows heavily from castle logic. thick walls that regulate temperature, smaller living zones instead of heating entire buildings, and strategic use of thermal mass. Curtains, rugs, and wall hangings, once dismissed as decorative, are now recognized for their insulating power. Even the idea of heating people instead of spaces, wearing warm layers indoors, using localized heat sources, sleeping in enclosed or insulated bedding, mirrors medieval survival exactly. Off-grid cabins, survival shelters, and emergency preparedness plans all echo these old lessons. Control airflow, trap heat, reduce exposed surface area, and never underestimate how fast the cold drains energy and decision-making ability. The medieval world didn't have the luxury of excess power, so it mastered efficiency by necessity, and in an age of climate uncertainty, that knowledge feels less ancient and more urgent than ever. So, could you survive the coldest nights inside a medieval castle? The honest answer is yes, but only if you unlearn modern comfort and relearn ancient awareness. Survival wasn't about bravado or endurance. It was about understanding materials, movement, and the quiet physics of heat. Castles weren't warm, they were survivable, and only just. Every tapestry, fire, curtain, and shared meal was a small rebellion against a world that offered no mercy when winter came. Today, when we walk through these stone halls as tourists, we admire their grandeur and forget their hostility, but the cold is still there, waiting, unchanged. And maybe that's the lesson worth remembering, that progress isn't just about invention, but about remembering what worked when failure meant freezing in the dark. If this journey through medieval survival changed the way you see the past or the way you think about warmth today, consider staying curious, sharing the story, and stepping deeper into the hidden knowledge history still whispers to those willing to listen.